Hey, today we're going to be doing a budget-friendly computer build. We have a decent video card, decent power supply, everything's pretty decent, i5 processor, 16 gigs. So we got a nice Thermaltake, portable small case. So yeah, let's go ahead and start the build. So the first thing we're going to start off with is the computer case. You can see it's a nice little Thermaltake case. And we like to start off with installing the motherboard. So there was just 2 screws right up here. Just take off the top cover. And now we have full access to inside the case. So let's go ahead and get the motherboard installed. And we also have some 80mm fans that we're going to install in the back. And we're going to install those as well. Alright, so like I said, we have the case here. We have the top off. And now we're going to go ahead and mount our 2 80mm fans right now. So let's go ahead and open up the box, get the screws out, and let's get them screwed up. Alright, we got both the fans mounted with the 8 screws that they provided. So now I'll go ahead and move on to the next step. Let's go ahead and put the PSU in, because that goes down here on the bottom. So let's go ahead and get that in there and secured. Alright, so we had to, we took all the sides off, took the bottom off. You have to take the bottom off because that's where you actually have to push up the power supply to get it right into place. Alright, so we got the computer on the side here. We got our first 2 screws already in. So now we're going to get our second screw or our third screw in. And then our last screw. Perfect. Alright, we got our power supply in now. So we're going to rotate this down. Okay, now that we have this moved down, we can go ahead and position ourselves to go ahead and get the motherboard slid in here. But before we do that, we're going to want to push this out of the way and actually get our motherboard, our memory, everything that we're going to do to build our motherboard setup, so then we can slide that motherboard in there. Alright, so we got our motherboard. Let's go ahead and open that up. Got our packaging. I like using the anti-static bag so we can set the motherboard perfectly on there. And we're going to go ahead and put the CPU in first. So you can go ahead and release that. Here's our CPU. We got the i5 9th gen. So let's go ahead and open up that. These are a little warranty and instructions. We're not going to use the, stock heat sinks are fine. There's, no problem with using stock heat sinks, but we actually have a little bit better one because we might be doing overclocking later, so don't want to overclock with a standard CPU heatsink. I would do like water cooling or something better than that. Let's go ahead and, here's our CPU. Set that aside. So you just want to open up that latch, remove the black protective piece, and then we can carefully put that in there. So if you notice on the CPU, there's particular notches. So you want to match those notches up with what you see on the board as you put it in. So I like to go notches in first and carefully just set it right in there. And then put that back on and seal that back up. And that's pretty easy installing processors. I like that part. So now we can slide that kind of out of the way, and here's our heatsink that we purchased. This is actually a really nice heatsink from the reviews that I've read online. Oh, and wow, and look at the packaging. I've never seen a heatsink with such nice packaging, and they give you a tube of thermopaste. I mean, that's really nice. A lot of companies don't do that, and that's a decent amount. So that's nice that they do that. They give you a just like a 4-pin extender. Interesting. Okay. They give you the additional screws, which is nice. And oh wow, look at that. That is a nice, and this is thick and heavy. I mean, this is gonna core CPU a lot better than this cheapo little thing that comes with the processor. So this is gonna be really nice. All right, we got our CPU installed. Now let's go ahead and get this new heatsink on. So the first thing we want to do is make sure some of these actually come with a clear plastic cover, and this one does not have that, so we don't have to worry about that. But we want to do is grab our thermopaste that came with our kit here. So take that out. And to be honest, this part you can literally do it however you want. I know some people put a dot in the middle, some people put 3 dots or maybe 3 lines. I normally just do 1 dot in the middle, and you want to make sure you don't use too much heatsink, and you don't want to do too little. So let's go ahead and put our heatsink on. All right. Now let's grab our. Just gonna seal that back up. It's nice that this kit really gives you that thermopaste. That's cool. So here's our heatsink. Let's go ahead and put that on there. And then now we have the 4 screws that we're going to use for the back to screw this in. That came off. You gotta make sure those screws are lined up. Alright, as we got our motherboard upside down here, we can go ahead and apply our screws. I always like to hand tighten them first before you actually use a screw gun or a hand screwdriver, just to make sure you got it in the thread area. Alright, go ahead and tighten them up now. And you want to do each corner a little at a time, because you don't want to over tighten one corner than the other. So just keep going back and forth with them and evenly screwed together here. That also helps spread that thermopaste all the way around the CPU as well. Alright, that should be there. Give them one last snug. And since we are here on the back, this motherboard is really nice. It actually has 2 NVMe ports, so we're going to go ahead and add our second NVMe drive. So this is going to be our second partition to store our game files, or I mean, you guys, it doesn't have to be game files, but that's what we're going to be doing with it. Go ahead and add our NVMe drive. Make sure that's pushed in all the way, push back, and then we can add our screw here. Perfect. So now we have our second drive in here, which is really nice. So let's turn this around here. Look at that. That looks pro. I love this. So we can actually plug in our power here for our fan, and you want to make sure you have that in the CPU, which it says right there, our CPU fan. So we have that in there. Then now we can go ahead and add our memory. So open those up. And we have some nice Corsair RGB memory. Now, since this only has 2 DIMM slots, maybe your motherboard has 4 DIMMs, so you want to make sure you put in the correct channel. But since this only has 2, we don't really have to worry about that. And plus, we only have 2 sticks of memory. So let's go ahead and put this in our case and start wrapping this up. And before we push that board back, the box should have came with this doohickey here. That's going to go in this back panel area of the case. So let's go ahead and open up that. I'll push that in there. There you go. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to get in there. So once you got that done, you can go ahead and slide it right through the holes. There you go. Looks perfect. And there we go. And once you have that all lined up, you want to make sure your 4 screws are all lined up as well. So you can go ahead and put in your mounting screws. Now the mounting screws, I like to use the ones that you can put in the separator. I like it. It's just a precaution in case it gets touched by something. It's separated. So just gonna put those in there. It's not needed, but I just like it being separated. Here. Sometimes you might have to push your motherboard here so it gets into that hole. Last one. Then our last one here. So nice and snug. Alright, we're looking good. So now we can add in our audio, which you can see it's got that middle spacer, so you can see that goes right in there. We got our 2 fans running up here, so we can go ahead and add those in there. Actually, with this case, we need to, we had to purchase a fan duplexer, whatever you want to call this, or a spline kit splitter, so we can add 2 fans to 1 power jack. So you have your Molex power, then this plugs into the connector down there, so it can still control the fan speed, and then we can add up to 3 more fans. So since we have 3 fans, but we only have 2 power jacks, that's why we had to purchase this additional accessory. So go ahead and get that added down here. So feed our power down to our power supply. Feed this here. Over here we can go ahead and add our 8-pin power for the CPU. got our power. So once we get our fans plugged in, let's go ahead and add our main power cord. Make sure that snaps in. This is your USB 3.0. Put that right in there. Then we have our, this is very important, every motherboard is different, but this is our hard drive light, power switch, reset switch, and then the power LED. So we gotta add that to the motherboard. Now usually you want to find that in the manual of your motherboard, since every motherboard is different. So this one is going to be alright, we're going to go ahead and add our third hard drive to this rig. So you're going to remove that screw here in this case. Pop that out. Now the type of drive we have here is a one of the newer Seagate SSH HD. So it's got a lot of cache, very good read and write performance. Not as fast as an SSD, but it's a lot better than a standard hard drive. It's still 7200 RPM, but it's got the SSD combination on that drive. So let's go ahead and line up our screw holes here. Figure out how this thing gets on. We got our additional screws. Now you're also going to want to look in your motherboard box to see if you have any SATA cables. Most motherboards come with at least one or two of these particular cables. So, these fucking screws added. I like having a second hard drive that's a little bit bigger. It might not be as fast as the SSD, but at least you have that big hard drive storage to if you store some movies or maybe some game files, and you don't want to take up that extra space on your SSD drive. So here we have our power. We're going to go ahead and add that power Molex connector there. And like I said, here's one of the SATA cables that we got from our motherboard. So let's go ahead and attach that to the motherboard. Actually, you want to use the curved item here. So have that right there. So like I said, we're not using this for the OS, we're just using this as a data drive. We got two NVMe drives that we want to use for program files and the OS. Screw back in. Let's go ahead and put in our M drive here, which is right here. So we're going to put our M drive in right over here. So take that out. And what's nice about this motherboard is it's got 2 spots. It's got not just 1 but 2 spots to put an M.2 drive in. So if you have multiple drives, you can do that, which is really nice. So once you get that removed, we got our 500 gig Samsung 970. Slide right in there. I like this metal casing on it. It's really nice. Almost is like a heat sink for it, which is really nice. My favorite part, the GPU. Chuck. I don't know. I can't believe they gotta put that sticker like that. Hopefully people know to remove that sticker. Alright, so there's our GPU. So we're gonna be using 1 HDMI and 1 video display port. So get those open. And then we can remove our PCI protector. Put that aside. Got our case back in here. Got our GPU. Open up our, make sure that is open, which it is now. Get our other connector. Slide that bad boy in. This thing barely fits in there. I mean, oh, look at that. There's no gap whatsoever. This thing was made for it. If it was just a couple millimeters longer, it would not fit in there. Look at that though. That is nice. Perfect fit. So let's go ahead and screw in that back. Still gonna need to run additional cable. Power. It looks like it's a 6-pin power cable for this. That would be easy. Alright. This thing is looking like a beast now. Let's go ahead and run our power and we are done. So we got our power. We're gonna need PCI 6-pin for our GPU, and then we're gonna need CPU, which is right here. Our additional power for our 6-pin. I'm sorry, not 6-pin, 8-pin over here. I wonder if we can come up to make it a little bit cleaner. Yeah, it's going to do that here. Here's our main power feed for the motherboard. Get that snugged in there, and then we got our power for our GPU, and we're looking good. We are like pretty much done. There's nothing really else to do but to do some more wire management and clean up the cable management a little bit here. Alright, here's our power for our GPU. And then we can go ahead and plug in the bottom cables into our power supply down here. So we got all the power cables down here. Go ahead and rotate some of that. So this is our CPU. Our monster power supply. Alright, so we put it upside down so we get easy access to this for all the cables. Go ahead and plug in our CPU. Then we have our GPU power here. And then of course lastly our monster power 24 pin. Got that all plugged in there, nice and snug. And then, like I said, let's finish up with some cable management. But we are looking really good. Alright, so now that we are getting all of our panels back on, we want to go ahead and power up the computer before we put the last lid on, just to make sure everything boots up properly and we can get Windows 10 installed. Alright guys, we are all done. We did our cable management, our GPUs installed, memories installed, we got our Windows 10 thumb drive installed, our USB for our keyboard and mouse. We got our monitor hooked up with the monitor cord and power cord. So this is the moment of truth. So if we did everything right, we should be good. Here's the power button. Let's click it on. Oh god. Oh wait. I like to do that a lot. Go ahead and hit that power switch. Switch that on. Now let's hit our power button here. Thank God. Okay, so we have light. Let's make sure we have our monitor. Oh, good. Okay, so we're booting up to our BIOS screen here. Hopefully it's gonna get to Windows 10. I love the light, and you can see it is loading. I love the lights on here, on the RGB on the memory. That is really cool. All right, we are at our Windows screen. Sweet. Let's go ahead and hit next. Install now. Hopefully it's going to see our M.2 SATA drive, so we can go ahead and install Windows. Product key, that's fine. Just Pro. Sign your life away. Awesome. It is there. Hit next. Sweet, you guys. Your build is complete. So like I said, we got our side panel on. There's the back of it. That is a pretty sweet mini build computer here. All right, so you can see we got Windows 10 installed. We're doing all of our fancy updates, and we formatted our drives. So you can see our C drive, which is that 500 gig M.2 drive, our second M.2 drive, the 500 gig, and the 1 terabyte Seagate drive. So we have them all in there. And we got our top lid on now, and the build is now complete, you guys. So good luck with you on your build. I would suggest something along the lines as this if you're not doing any kind of crazy gaming, tons of video editing. This is a perfect starter build for anybody that's interested in a little gaming and, you know, whatever else. All right, here's our final look to our case, and we got the motherboard in there, GPU's in there looking good. Put the fans in there, our additional hard drive,